Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 9 of Beyond Local. Today, we're going to be talking about creating an SEO audit checklist. And so happy to introduce today's guests, Darcy Huff and Kozie. Darcy, this is your first time on the podcast, so welcome.
Thank you.
You're a senior SEO specialist here at LSEO.com, and you've got a crazy level of experience. But tell us a little bit more about Darcy, particularly around your expertise in SEO, and maybe share one fun fact or interesting anecdote about you.
Yeah, sure. So for my career in SEO, I actually started more on the content side of things as a content specialist. And then specifically with my time here at LSEO, I've been able to branch more into technical SEO, which has become my favorite aspect, actually. And overall, with my career, I did start on the design side of things. I am a graphic designer. So while I've moved career-wise into online marketing, design still remains one of my favorite things to do in my spare time. So
awesome. And maybe one funny or interesting?
Yeah, okay. I'm actually a true crime junkie. So during quarantine, I've had a lot of documentaries lined up. So that's also what I'll be doing after work today at home.
Did you see that? I think Netflix just released Unsolved Mysteries?
Yep.
The first 2 episodes I saw were okay.
Yeah. I'm hoping it picks up a bit, but pretty excited about it.
Who's the host of that?
I don't remember.
That guy, I was hoping that he came back when they released this new one. It's not really the same without him. I don't know. You'll have to check it out and let us know. And Kyle, you're a familiar face to Beyond Local. This is your 3rd podcast. Really hope to have both of you on many times. Give a little bit more about your background and maybe one interesting fact about yourself.
Yeah, ever since I graduated from Penn State in 2015, all I've known is SEO. That's where I had my internship in. And I've been a part of 4 agencies before I got to LSEO. So I've been a part of the agency life ever since 2015, and I just fell in love with SEO, and it's what I want to keep doing.
How about one interesting factoid?
So one thing that probably everybody at LSEO knows, but many others may not, I have a crazy obsession with Eric Church.
Yes, you do. And you actually, I don't know if we could say you met him, but you shook his hand at one of the recent concerts.
Yeah, haven't gotten backstage yet, but hopefully soon.
Cool. Awesome. All right, so let's dive into the topic. As I said, we're going to be chatting about creating an SEO audit for your business. And Darcy published a post on the LSEO blog earlier this year on this topic. So let's dive right into it. In terms of setting up the checklist, one of the things you recommend is starting with Google Search Console. Can you chat a little bit more about that?
Sure. So Google Search Console is a great tool for site owners. One of the first things that you want to do when you get in there is confirming your ownership of the website. There's different methods of verification that you can use. And then once you do that, you can really utilize the system to do important things like checking if your site has any penalties. That's really important because if your site is subject to a penalty, all of your SEO efforts won't even matter. So you want to look at that. You want to submit your site map so to make sure that there's no coverage issues. In other words, making sure that the pages on your site are all being indexed. That's really important. Again, to make sure that your efforts aren't just going out the window as you make your changes throughout your SEO work.
Does Google Search Console become like one of the primary things that you use when you're conducting an audit for one of our clients?
Yeah, it's definitely up there because in addition to just the things that we've mentioned for setting it up, it's also great to check it regularly for, again, coverage issues. If there's any security issues that you need to look into, it'll come up. Actually, you can get email notifications if there's any issues that are going on. So it's a really helpful tool to maintain your SEO in addition to just setting it up and to hit the ground running.
One of the things that you mentioned in your blog post is this idea of using it to submit your sitemap. Can you chat about that?
Right. So once you have your SEO sitemap created, which, that could probably be discussed in a separate post entirely, but you want to use the feature on Search Console to submit it. And what that does is it really lets Google know what pages are on your site, what should be crawled, what shouldn't be. So it's really helpful to make sure that what's ranking in your search results reflects what is actually important on your site, what your audience wants to actually be looking at.
Awesome. And so Kyle, so you're going to, anyone can get a ton of information out of Google Search Console, right? But one of the things that you and your team do at LSEO is you will also run your own website crawls. And so can you chat a little bit more about how you guys approach that and why it's important that when a business is looking at this checklist that Darcy put together, that they also do this, that they just don't rely on Google Search Console, but they also do this website crawl?
Yeah, so like Darcy said, Google Search Console will give you a lot of those errors. That's why you need to set it up. But it's not going to pick up everything or give you everything. So that's why we like to do some manual crawls. And it's funny that I'm on this podcast because the last one I did was my top 25 SEO tools. And two of those tools that we mentioned were SEMrush and Screaming Frog. And those are exactly what we use to crawl the site. You could spider the site just as Google would if they came to your homepage and crawled all your internal links. So both of those tools are the best tools that we've found to pick up some errors like broken pages. Are you calling your sitemap in your robots.txt file in addition to putting it in Search Console? Is your metadata optimized? Do you have any duplicates, any missing titles, any missing descriptions? And then even some page speed issues that you could always turn over to a developer.
Awesome. And just to clarify for the folks that are watching this, we're really talking about technical SEO and on-site SEO factors, right? That's what's primarily covered in your post, right, Darcy? Right. And so that's just to clarify for people that are watching. And one of the things that, I'm all in on educating people, helping them self-educate so that they can make more informed decisions. At the end of the day, they may decide to hire a freelancer or outsource it. But I think it's important that folks don't get so intimidated by technical factors that they just let someone else do it. So I think that the idea of the website crawl is an area where the output of that is highly technical. But nonetheless, you guys use this as one of the primary sort of things you check off when you're doing an SEO audit, correct?
Yeah, and I like to use this analogy sometimes, but think about if you went into a restaurant and all the tables were open and the hostess said to you, pick whichever table you want. You're obviously going to pick the cleanest one. Some may have crumbs on them, they might be dirty. You're going to pick the cleanest one. So if you think about what Google's going to put at the top of their rankings, when they come to crawl a site, they want to make sure it's completely clean. So that's why we're looking at these technical aspects to clean the site up.
Awesome. So you're looking for errors, you're looking for broken pages, and some of the things you mentioned. Super cool. So Google announced within the last 2 or so years this idea of a mobile first index. And so mobile friendliness and making sure that your website is optimized for mobile and mobile friendly is critical. You added this as one of the primary things on your SEO checklist. So can you talk a little bit more about why it's important?
Definitely, yeah. So mobile friendliness has become a huge factor when it comes to rankings now. So Google did switch to mobile first indexing, which means that it prefers sites that are also friendly for a mobile device, not just for desktop. And in July 2019, so that's when it started implementing mobile first for new websites. But as of September 2020, it's going to be applicable for all websites. So it's really important now, if you haven't yet, to make sure that your site is mobile friendly, responsive on a mobile device, tablets, things like that.
Indeed. And so to your point earlier, we could spend an entire podcast. You guys should consider doing an entire post just on mobile friendliness, because I think there's probably so many businesses out there that just aren't prepared for that September 2020 change. All right, so Kyle, page speed. Talk more about why this is important. Just to set it up, the 3 primary ranking factors that SEOs worry about are content, links or authority, and third, this idea of rank brain, which is really a hodgepodge of all of these on-site factors that you guys are chatting about. So Google is coming into the website and they're collecting data on how users that click from their search results to your site are interacting with your site. So page speed is one of those factors that even you've been working with Brian Peters on the LSEO team to improve LSEO's page speed. So talk a little bit more about why it's important.
Yeah, and it kind of ties into what you and Darcy were just talking about in terms of mobile friendliness. No matter where you go in public, you see people with their heads buried in their smartphones. Most traffic comes from a smartphone device. That's why Google has made that transition to the mobile first index. And if you think about it, people want speed when they're using those devices. They want the website to load fast. They want to get the information quickly, especially going from 3G to 4G to LTE. They expect it to be fast. And one of the factors is not always the connection. It's the stuff you load on your website. So there could be things on your website, and it's funny because we just redesigned our website and we saw things were slowing it down, like the chat bot, some of the images not being the right size, and just how some things are loading simultaneously. So you want to make sure that you're getting that information on the screen as fast as possible, because Google wants to provide the best result. They're in the business to provide the best result, and the one way to do that is to make sure they get it to the user in the snap of a finger.
Just in these last couple years, some of the panels that I've spoken on at PubCon and SMX and stuff like that have really talked about this idea of page speed. You know, Google announced Firebase and then later AMP. And so my question for you is, do you think that optimizing for page speed is a top 5 ranking factor?
I believe so. If I guess if it's not, it's eventually going to be. I mean, all the articles you read now is about the core web vitals, all of that stuff. Google using that as part of their algorithm. So if it's not top 5 yet, I think it's eventually going to be, probably starting in 2021. And that's why I say work with a web developer, because I'm not going to pretend as an SEO that we know how to fix that stuff. It's way over our head. But we could point them in the right direction to show them what's slowing the website down, what JavaScript, CSS needs to be optimized. And we could work with a web developer to solve those issues and get that page speed firing fast.
For folks that are watching, as Kyle was talking about page speed, you ever have an old car and you try to just continually fix the same problem that just keeps coming up? What it usually means is it's probably time to get a new car. Not trying to sell LSEO services per se, but one of the smartest things that anybody watching might want to consider is really investing in a new sort of modern website. Because if we're talking about things like mobile friendliness, and if we're talking about things like page speed, and you're using some archaic backbone or CMS to your website, a firm like LSEO is only going to be able to do so much unless you make that investment in a new website. So, reach out to the folks at LSEO if you fall into that category. All right, let's nerd out. This is one of my favorite SEO topics because it really is that important, and it's this idea of structured data. So tell us more about why structured data is important, why you have it on your checklist, and maybe talk about how a consumer sees that.
Sure. So long gone are the days where you search something on Google and everything that comes up on the results page is just text. That was how it was in the late 90s, early 2000s, but not anymore. You have so many visuals that you can utilize now when you add structured data. So think of when you search something and you get that rich result at the very top, either answering your question or providing you with reviews if you're looking for a roofer or some type of service in your area. All those visuals are great to have next to your result on this results page, because that is just going to, if anything, increase the click-through rate of your result. People are more bound to click on something visual that jumps out at you, that instantly provides you more valuable information than just a plain text result.
That's awesome. I mean, the reason, again, you already said it, that I love the idea of structured data is that it could improve your click-through rate. And I would argue that at the end of the day, what's going to move your results up and down in that sort of top 10 positions more than anything is the click-through rate, that somebody sees your listing and is more likely to click on it. That's the exact signal that you want to send to Google. Is there anything else about structured data you wanted to add, Kyle?
No, again, it's something that you almost need now, just like we were talking about page speed. No matter what you search in Google, you're going to see rich results come up. Like Darcy said, some of the answer boxes, things like that. But even from an e-commerce standpoint, just making sure you have the price. Is it in stock, out of stock? Does it have a star rating? That's important for e-commerce websites, because if there's competitors who have that and customers could get that right from the search results page, they're more likely to click that result than yours if you don't have it. So having structured data is super important, and that's why it made this list, because we created this list because we're trying to show websites that they need all of this stuff to show at the top of Google. So having it is super important, and that's how you get those clicks, and Google does track those clicks.
Got it. And just to actually follow up on this idea of structured data real quick, Darcy. So it's not a matter of leaving it to Google to find this important information and put it into the search results. You guys have to modify the HTML, and in using that structured data sort of format, in order for it to consistently appear, correct? It just doesn't happen because we want it to happen. There's actually a technical thing that you guys do in order to make it happen, right?
Yeah, there's a script that needs to be created where you're essentially mapping out for Google what information matches with what category. So, for example, you are providing Google instantly what the price is of something, like Kyle said, what their logo image is, for example. That way Google can read that and see and pull the exact information that they're looking for to have on those results pages. And you can test your script actually by using the Google structured data testing tool, but it was actually announced only 2 days ago that that tool is being decommissioned and that we should be using the rich results tool instead.
That was definitely a nerd out, by the way.
Thank you.
Very, very cool. Yeah. So content, right? So when I'm kind of looking at my notes and reading Darcy's article again, this is one of the areas that if businesses are just writing content and they're not using tools, and if they're not following a format, there's a good chance that SEO best practices are being violated. So I think you were right in adding this to your checklist to take a look at optimizing that on-site content. So from a SEO audit point of view, what are you guys looking to do as it relates to content?
Yeah, so when we crawl the website, I mentioned looking for missing meta titles, descriptions, duplicates. Just because you don't find any of those doesn't mean they're optimized. So you kind of have to take a manual approach. Just because you're not seeing it in the crawl, you have to make sure that they're optimized for the right keywords, non-branded keywords. You're always going to rank for your brand, so take the meta title and description and the on-page content as an opportunity to go after higher search volume, non-branded keywords. And like I said, there has to be a manual approach there to look at that stuff, do the keyword research, look at the search volume. Is it worth putting in your title, your description, and in your on-page content? And another thing we look at is the content thin? Does it have enough words on the page to actually target the right keywords? It's been said that Google likes longer form content. It's no secret. So making sure you have more than 250, 500 words, getting into that 1,000 and above range is what you want to do, because you could insert the keyword multiple times. You could use synonyms of that keyword, and Google wants to see that when they read the page in the HTML and read the text on the page. That's how Google realizes what your page is exactly about, and that's how they put it in search results.
Awesome. Along those same lines is this importance of keyword research, and you have it as one of the items on your checklist. So can you chat a little bit more about that?
Sure. So keyword research is super important, ties into this above step on having optimized content. There are a lot of tools you can use out there. Some are free, some aren't. And really, you want to start out with a list of all the topics, products, services that you offer that you think people are searching for that pertains to your business. And then add that into one of those tools to start your research. And there's just so many other tools that come tied in with a lot of them, like competitive research. What terms like this are your competitors focusing on that you should really zone in on? Things like that.
Awesome. Well, Darcy, you crushed it. Great job. Thanks for being part of today's podcast.
Thanks
Kyle,
for having me.
welcome back. And for those that are watching, we look forward to seeing you guys next week for episode 10.